Welcome to the Golf Improvement Podcast, Episode 70.
Welcome to the podcast for golf lovers and enthusiasts who are looking to take their games to new heights. Dedicated to custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice to improve your golf game. This is the Golf Improvement Podcast with your host, Tony Wright.
Hello, this is Tony Wright from Game Improvement Golf in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with the Golf Improvement Podcast, dedicated to bringing you useful information on custom club fitting, short game improvement, and effective practice techniques to take your game to new heights. Well, happy 2017 and the first podcast of this year. A few things before we get into our interview today in the better late than never category. Last year I did a two-part highlights podcast with what I hoped were some interesting snippets from the podcast done in 2015. I'll publish these right after I return from the PGA Equipment Show near the end of January. It's a little later than some people might do in terms of their end of the year kind of things, but I still think there's some value in doing this for golfers who want to sort of pull together some of the information from the podcast from 2016. You'll also notice a little different look to the titles in my podcast in the future. This new look comes from a suggestion from a good friend and my friend, putting guru Juan Gutierrez. I think it's going to help folks to see what each podcast is about a little better when they pull them up on their iPhones or iPods or wherever they listen to them. Well, I love getting to talk with custom club fitters about what they do and learning from them, and I know you will also enjoy this interview with a good friend, Don Coyle from Country Acres Custom Golf in Mount Vernon, Illinois, a Golf Digest Top 100 custom club fitter. Well, hello, this is Tony Wright with the Golf Improvement Podcast, and it's my pleasure today to let you hear from Don Coyle, who is a Level 10 AGCP custom club fitter, certified club fitter. His business is Country Acres Golf in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and in particular, I want to congratulate him for again becoming or being recognized as a Golf Digest Top 100 custom club fitter. I think it's 2015 was the first time. You'll have to correct me if it's wrong. And then this year, 2017. So, Don, thanks for doing this with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you bet, Tony. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, again, congrats on that recognition. That it's great exposure for what we all do for people to get recognized. And but talk in the beginning here a little bit about your story. And I don't really know it up front, kind of how you became interested in becoming a custom fitter and some of the things, the biggest things that help you learn the trade and to become a well-recognized fitter in the industry.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you, it was never a goal to do this for sure. I've been blessed over the years that I was able to play a lot of golf, and actually one day I took my clubs into our local pro and had them re-gripped, and he just commented. He said, "Hey, Donnie, I think this is something you might enjoy." Well, never thought much about it, and in the same week my son called from Indianapolis and said, "Dad, guess what I'm into?" And well, he was learning, so I thought, well, I'll check into it. So I bought some books and read up and kind of thought, well, once I got started, I bought some very basic stuff. I decided I'd better go to a school and really, so I went to a company called Dynacraft, Jeff Summit, Jeff Jackson. And that was my first, it was a week school. And during that school, I became so excited about, I just had no idea what all was involved in this. And then I went back to another school, and it just kept blossoming into a real passion for it. So, and basically over the years, what I have done is just slowly grow, and we've kept in touch with professional club makers that really know their stuff, and that's a great relationship that has helped me. Books, I've read everything I can get my hands on that's good. And then schools. I try to go to as many of the schools. I don't haven't done so much of that lately, but
yeah.
So anyway, it just kind of was an accidental deal, fate maybe. I don't know.
Now you didn't mention it. I hope this doesn't date you too much, but when was that first time? What that actual year when you had that discussion with the pro and your son? It
was 2001, actually.
Yeah.
Towards the end of 2001. And we actually had my first sale in, I think it was February of 2002. And so yeah, we've been doing it a little while.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say it's been full time for, I don't know, 11, 12 years actually.
Yeah. And to me, that's one of the, wouldn't it be great if you could sort of turn a light switch and become really a great custom fitter, right? and I don't know anybody that's really good at what they're doing at this. And some of the typical time frames I've heard, 7-8 years, when you start to get to the point where you think, not that you say everything, because you never do, but where you got enough in the bag, you know what I mean?
Exactly. When you first started, at least for myself, I'll just speak for myself. When you first start in this, you're very, very, the basics, but you haven't experienced the out of the box things you need to deal with, and I'll tell you, it's an ongoing learning process for me. I mean, 15 years later, we still try to think out of the box because inevitably you get the guy that doesn't do what everybody said he's going to. It's just not going to happen that way. So you have, but by then you're able to recoup and know which direction to go to get the job done. So, but it takes, it does. It takes a while to get to that point, or it did me at least.
Yeah. Now, when I went on your website, you got, I think, kind of a neat setup. It almost looks like, I don't know, did you build some of the buildings that you've got for your fitting studio and workshop?
Yeah.
Or you talk a little bit about that, because it's I think everybody could almost be envious of the setup that you have there.
Yeah, well, again, this was not a plan. We didn't know what direction this was going, and we started out. We moved here 20 years ago and purchased to purchase specifically a kennel, and above the kennel there's a little about 10 by 12, I guess, and so we cleared it out, and I used that. And after walking up and down steps for a while, we decided that wasn't any good. So I had a pretty new, it was a 12 by 24 shed, and with mowers and stuff. And my wife actually suggested I move into that, which tickled me. So I refinished that. We put electricity in and finished the walls and all that, and I made my shop in there, and it's adequate. It's packed, but it's adequate. And I did my fittings. Right next to that was just an open area. We poured a concrete pad for the mat, had a net, and then on past that, I bought a 10 by 20 shed to house the fitting materials, the heads and so on and so forth. So we did that for a while, and then next thing we did was we had a carport built, and it's like maybe you'd put a cruiser in or something. It's about 15 feet tall and 22 feet wide. I mean, it's huge. And then we had a boat canvas guy come, and the south end of it, we actually had snaps, and it was pretty neat, really, and it served its purpose. And then after some time, I decided just to go ahead and enclose it. So we hired some people to come and they just built around this structure. And the shed has, how they have the double doors on the side sometimes. Yeah. Well, we just took it off, and this was butted up against that. So what we end up with is a 12 by 24 building, and then about 4 feet from that to the west is the fitting room is probably, 22 by 30, 32 maybe, and then there's an opening to the shed, which is a 10 by 20. So it was kind of pieced together, but it certainly serves the purpose. And if ideally I would love to have everything under one roof and just but hey, it worked out great, and I'm very blessed to have it.
Yeah, I think there are very few people that are able to have something there, and people can look at pictures on your website and really see what I mean.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Well, we just kept putting profits back into the business for quite a time.
Yeah,
and that's able to, having the other income. Without that, I'd have been hard pressed to do it. But it works out fine.
Yeah. Well, the big topic of the day, I think, is a little bit on the word misconceptions. And when you and I had about a 5 or 10 minute pre-discussion last week, that word kept coming up and as something you wanted to talk specifically about. So, from your viewpoint, can you talk about some of the major misconceptions that you think golfers have about custom club fitting, and what has been your learning in those areas, and things you try to help golfers with when they come see you?
Sure. Well, one of the things I've found is most golfers really don't know what a true custom fitting. I mean, they've just not been involved with it. They associate it with a Arista floor and maybe a lie board, hitting a 6-iron off a lie board, and hit after until one feels good, that kind of thing. And it's maybe a 20-minute process or so. My fittings the driver fitting takes 2 hours and sometimes 3. My customers will tell you because we get to talking, but there is so much involved in it, so many things that are never looked at, and the reason is, in a lot of the big box stores, and I know there's good fitters in them, and now they've got some decent equipment, but most of them really are not trained to be professional club fitters. Some of them are pretty good golfers, but that doesn't mean you understand the clubs matched to the person. And so when they walk out of here, they're just like amazed that, my gosh, we went through, and they're tired too. My fittings are all dynamic fittings, so you need to hit a lot of balls, and I've got to be careful because once the customer gets worn down, then you don't get good input, and it's hard to assess what you need. But yeah, I think the biggest single thing is that people just really don't understand how much this can improve their game. And then also, another thing I've seen is a lot of golfers think that this is really just designed for really low handicap golfers, and that nothing could be further from the truth. I can help show immediate results to mid and even high handicap golfers a lot quicker than I'm going to be able to help a 2 handicap guy. And a lot of it just depends on how well or how poorly your current clubs fit you. Yeah. I mean, that's the basis on what we're going to be able to, how much we can help you. And another thing is we don't get into swing a lot simply because I don't have certifications in that area. However, do have to deal with that to fit clubs. You just do. So the launch monitor can show people their swing path. It can show them a lot of things that help them understand why are they slicing the ball, and it really can help them iron out their swings without me being a teacher. But yeah, I think it's just a misconception that they just don't understand why they should do it. I mean, they don't really know what's involved with it.
Now, a couple of little follow-ons from that too. You said there's some things you do with the driver fitting. Maybe one or two of the things that you think people don't understand they need to be tested for or really be fit for in terms of drivers. One thing, one of the most simple things in club fitting, but yet so important, is length. And if a guy's fighting a driver that's 45.5 inches, which is typically what they're going to see from just they buy off the shelf, the game gets much easier with a shorter club. So instead of a Arista floor and you need this, what we do the Arista floor as a starting. But then I have several drivers that are all identical. The only variable is length.
and I just have them hit 3 shots with each one with impact labels. And let's just see where, and it's amazing. Sometimes, not every time, but sometimes you just see that impact come in to tight when you get to the right length. So something that simple. The other thing is on the shaft. It used to be years ago, we looked at a guy swinging 100 mile an hour, and we said, well, maybe he needs this CPM butt flex, which was just one measurement of the shaft. Well, nowadays, thanks to some really smart guys in the industry, we look at the butt, the mid, and the tip, and each one of those relates to a different part of the swing. So we are able to match that up, real close to the swing. You can take 10 shafts that all have the exact same butt flex, and every shaft plays very differently because of the stiffness in the tip or the mid or the combination thereof. So getting it right, really crucial to do. So that's just a few of the things, but I mean, there's a list.
Pretty long.
Seriously, face angle is a big thing. Unfortunately, now with these heads that are
the adjustable heads, yeah,
that's been taken away from us a little bit, but there's still heads out there. The guy that slices, the single biggest thing without a swing change that's going to him is either a closed face or an offset or an offset closed. And so there is help out there. But yeah, it's very involved, and it's just time consuming. It's time to do it.
People too. I don't know if you've had this. Of course, you're not right by a driving range, but I've had people. If I don't prepare them, they'll go out and hit balls before, and I say, you may not want to do that. You don't really realize that you might get tired at the end. It's easy for people to get tired at the end, and you do, like you said, have to watch it to make sure, because sometimes it takes toward near the end to lock in to where you really need to be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some go smoother than others, and it's very obvious to me, and others it just isn't. And you instead of just picking something, you got to do it right.
Yeah. Now go ahead. Sorry.
We'll have customers come in on long distance, maybe 4 or 5 hours away, and both fittings, and I insist they don't do them in the same day, just because I know, standing hitting balls one after the other is not like playing around the golf. It gets to most people pretty quick. I don't care what the M&A is. So we'll have them do maybe one fitting that evening. They'll stay at a bell and then come back the next morning fresh. We'll do the other fitting and then get them on their way. And so you've got to have good information going in, certainly, to make good decisions.
The other thing we mentioned the other day, and I hope you don't mind talking about it, put you on the spot, but wouldn't it be great if you do a fitting, you build a club that all works perfectly, but some things can change. Sometimes they'll change how they swing a little bit compared to where they were, and folks will say, well, does this really work right? And sometimes there's a little back end work, which, if you're going to a big box store, they may not get that opportunity to do it. Can you talk a little bit about that, Don? Because I think it's an important part of custom fitting.
Absolutely, and again, this is not this. I'll speak for myself. I think most guys are with me on this, though. But when you go to a big box store and you buy a club, they really are just happy to see you again when you're ready for the next club. In my case, my reputation, my sales, my income, my livelihood is based on satisfied customers, and it's word of mouth. A guy from a new city I haven't dealt with comes down and gets fitted. He's playing great. He tells everybody he knows, and before long, I have a whole bunch of guys from that city. So what I tell them is, it's a relationship. Once you do a fitting with me, we've established a relationship, and I expect you, I hope that if things are good, you'll let me know. I also hope if there's something's going wrong, you'll let me know. And I've had cases, more than one, where we did the fitting. The guy has come and picked the club up. He's just striping it, and then 2 weeks later he calls. Says, "Don, I can't hit this club." Well, that it's the club's probably okay, but so you just have him come in, put him back on the launch monitor, And usually you can, well, look, here,
something's different.
Something's crept into your swing, and now you see what you're doing here, and that's any club that you're going to do that with, and they appreciate that, and then again, I just had one guy that we built a set of irons for, and I told him initially that I was going to build them to D4, and the more I thought about it, I went back and back over and over through the information, and when I come time to build them, I built them D2, and I told him, when he came to pick him up, and he lives a little ways off, so he calls me the other day. He's had them for 6 months. He calls me the other day and says, "Man, I really wish we'd gone with that heavier weight." So I had him send them back, and I'm redoing them to D4 at no expense. So and by the way, he's coming back this Thursday for a driver fitting. So you just, if you're going to stay in this business, it can't be a one-shot deal. You've got to. It's a lasting relationship. And I'll tell you, I've made lots of friends through this. That's another great thing about this business. I've got lots of friends. We even try to get together to play golf once in a while.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate that. I appreciate sharing that because it's very important, and it's not purely the business part. It's their happiness. It's definitely the happiness of the people who are coming.
Yeah, well, and one reason my fittings can take, basically, if somebody has gone to the expense and the trouble to come down and do this to improve their game, we've already got a lot in common.
Yeah.
Because we're loving some of the same things. So yeah, but I think the people that understand it are, they feel good. And I got lots of guys now that'll call me and just stay in touch.
Yeah.
And they'll talk about, hey, I shot a great round the other day or whatever. So it's good.
That's fabulous stuff. Well, Don, let's switch a little bit. And one of the things I noticed on your site is that you recently started fitting with the Adele Torque Balance putters. I know you have the putting system, the Torque Balance system. I know there was a particular reason you went to that, but you're having some great success. Maybe talk a little bit about that for a while, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I'll tell you, Tony, for the last, I'd say 5 years, I have really put a lot of money into trying. I've always been very disappointed that people will not do putter fittings. The most guys want to go to a big box store where there's 200 putters, and I understand that. I've done a lot of that, and it is kind of fun. But the problem is, there's nothing. You can stand 20 putts in a row on one of those mats, and I'm telling you, then you get out the course, and it's a whole different deal. So there is a science to the putters, and like I say, I've bought into programs, and I've got some different lines, which are great lines, but I've never really come up with a definitive process. And my Callaway rep actually gave me it's called a torque balanced or a toe-up putter, and I putted with it for a little bit. I didn't pick it for the looks of it at the time. I think they've changed them now.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of the toe-up or the torque balance. And the face, the face is very happy to be square at impact. It doesn't twist or anything. And I was making a lot of putts. So I started reading, and I came across this David Edel.
Right.
It's Edel putters, and their system is it's a rack. We got right and left-handed. Everything's interchangeable, hosels, weights, everything. And their system says basically that most people do not see the line. They're actually the line isn't what they think it is. They see it wrong. They perceive it to be different. And sure enough, it's right. So the things that can influence that are head shape, something as simple as head shape, hosel configuration, whether it's onset, offset, or even, and then the lie of the putter will kind of make a difference on the face, how much face you see, and sometimes you feel like you're pointed right, so you aim left. Lines on the putter. So anyway, this is a process that where you eliminate one thing at a time. So you put together a very basic putter. You put a laser on it, and there's a mirror on the putter, and you put a ball down. Have the guy aim at the laser, and move the ball away. And it's amazing. I've only seen one guy, and it was a college kid. I've only seen one guy so far that was aimed. He thought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they're pretty amazed too. They're like, no way, and they do it again, same thing. So then you start changing. Basically, we do that with their putter in the beginning to show them kind of where they've been lining up. And I think basically, and some of these guys make a lot of putts, so I think the brain just kicks in and it takes over as you stroke the ball. But I mean, this game's hard enough without forcing your brain to do that. So at any rate, you start with the head and then the hosel configuration, and you keep going until you've got that line brought in to where he's aiming, where he looks like he's aiming, he is actually aiming there. Okay. Then once you get that figured out, the head type, the hosel type, the length, the lie, then we look at distance control. And putting basically is it's aim, action, and path, and they'll lay a string down, and we'll try to get them to stop it on the string. So if the guy is a radial putter, it's a timing thing. I think Tiger's a radial, and there's a few others, but most are not. But if he's a radial putter, weight in the head will help, and it will make the most difference. He's a linear putter, which most of us are, and that's the guy that the stroke is usually about the same length, actually. It's just that it's the force we put it on the downstroke that determines the distance. That will do better with the weight in the shaft. And so we experiment. We find out what kind of putter he is, and then we experiment with the weights. You can take a 50-gram weight and move it down further in the shaft to make it feel heavier, or you can move it up. And what we're trying to do is to get him to put several balls in a row right on that string. And that's going to give him great distance control. So it's a system that is very definitive on. I mean, when you're finished, man, it's solid. It's very solid. The other thing I like is they've got the pixels they've got a whole bunch of pixels. I forget how many. On the face.
The pixel inserts in the face. Yeah.
Yeah, and each one of these evidently has the same amount of energy. So, in other words, if you hit a shot off the toe side of that, you should get the same thing as you do off the center. Whereas on most putters, you're going to lose. If you don't hit in the center of gravity, you're going to lose some distance. So that's a pretty cool feature too. But I'll tell you, if I sell 4 or 5 putters a year, I'm lucky normally. We picked this up in October. In September. And then October 20th, I had a new hip put in, so I was out 6 weeks, and I've still sold 7 of these putters. I've got a guy coming at 10 o'clock today for a fitting. 3 of these guys were college students. And so far, everybody has said what a difference it makes in the feel and just everything. Their confidence level.
Yeah, their fitting system is fabulous. It really is. I
haven't seen anything like it.
I had one. I had the system about 4 or 5 years ago, and the old putter I had, I aimed 8 inches left from 6 feet away.
Yeah, I mean it's incredible, and I think the brain must just kick in order to make some putts. But man, this game's tough enough without that.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about some of the things you might share in terms of success stories, but you have a lot of love for younger golfers and things like that. So I think that's some of the things you want to talk about specifically in terms of successes. How about a little bit of discussion on some of the things that have really pleased you in terms of working with people? Yeah,
well, I mean, anybody can help turn their game around and give them pleasure. I mean, that's all. That's always you get that call where the guy loves the clubs, and that just makes your day. But in particular, I've been lucky enough to work with some young people that are. We've got one kid, for instance, that was I forget how old he was when we fit him, but we put him in a set of Wish-On blades when he was 15 years old or something. And now he's at Kansas. He's on a free ride to Kansas. And I'm not saying it's because I put him in that set.
Yeah.
But he was open enough. When he came in here, I was amazed because most of the kids want a name, and but I asked him. I said, "Have you got any preconceived notions on this?" And he said, "Mr. Coyle, just fit me with need," and I was very impressed. So we put him on a set of Wish-On blades, and I mean, he played lights out with these things. And then today he's got, like I say, he's at Kansas State, on a free ride to Kansas State, which is a big golf school. So it's just fun to watch these kids, progress throughout over the years and follow, and they'll send you a deal when they win a tournament, and it's just a good feeling. And I just hope that eventually somebody's going to take over, because at that level the OEMs start giving them stuff, So he'll be playing some different stuff, I'm sure, but I hope I've impressed upon them that whatever you do, go to a qualified fitter and get fit for it, because if you don't, your competition is. And you need every edge you can get, because it's a very competitive world in golf. In the boys' world especially, it's a very competitive world. But I get the most pleasure, I would say, out of working with young people. They seem more open to suggestion and to what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
But
well, hopefully, and for people listening, so young guys, be sure you're getting something that really is going to work with you. Just because it's some hotshot name, there's more to the club than just the name. And right. I know you work. I'm sure you're retrofitting the clubs. You're working with TaylorMades and all that, but it's not just the TaylorMades. It's what the weighting and all that is at the end, so that there's a consistent feel. Right?
Exactly, and that gets back to what we were talking about. There's so much more to this than, and that's why I build I build most clubs that I fit. Okay, whether it's a retro fit or a scratch, because there's nothing lost in translation. I mean, I know if I want him to be a little bit softer, if I want him to play a little bit firmer, if I need some weight here or there, I know what I fit him for, and I can build it to those specs. Whereas the OEMs they'll do swing weight and length and very basic stuff, but they're not going to flow a shaft or move weight around in a shaft, or they're just not going to do that stuff. So, or at least I don't think.
Yeah.
So yeah, very important to get it done right, for sure.
Well, Don, this has been a great interview today. I'm going to give you the ability to say a few final words on things you think people should. Besides listening to everything, some more, any final takeaways in terms of custom fitting, or, anything you want to share to help golfers play their best?
Yeah, I think if a person is really eaten up with this sport like we are,
yeah, right.
I think the first thing is they need to have clubs that fit. And I mean, I know I make a living doing this, but it's very true. So they need to get fit properly. The next thing is, is practice, but be sure you understand what you're working on. I mean, just beating balls all day won't necessarily improve your game. So you need to have at least a lesson or so to get the basics down, because every good swing begins with good posture, good hands, just all that stuff. So at least get the basics down with a good quality, and I don't mean a good friend. I'm talking a swing coach. It's worth the money.
Yeah, good friends have good intentions, don't they?
Right. Exactly. But and then lastly, which everybody knows this and has heard it till they're sick of it, but if you don't get that short game down, you are missing the boat. I'll tell you, I am not a great ball striker, but I've spent my whole golf career on getting up and down and making putts, and it will make a huge difference if you work. It's not as much fun as booming drives, but it will make a huge difference in your scores. And obviously, the better you play, the more you're going to want to play. And it's just a great game. You can play it well when you're an old man like I am, even. But yeah, so. But getting fit is the key. It really is. That's the beginning. So.
Well, Don, thanks for the time today and for sharing, all the things you did share. And we'll put some links to your website, also to the Adele putters. And have a good New Year. And hopefully, it's not going to get too cold there over the next while. But you know how it is in the Midwest, right?
I do. You just stick around; it'll change.
That's
Tony,
right.
Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it.
All right, you take care.
Taking your game to new heights. www.gameimprovementgolf.com.
Well, Don, thanks for doing that interview, and in particular, giving us your perspective on some of the misconceptions that golfers have about what custom club fitting is and how it can benefit golfers. I've included links to Don's website in the show notes and also to some information about the Adele Golf Torque Balance putters. Well, that's it for today. In 2 weeks, I'm pleased to get to interview Jeff Sheets from Jeff Sheets Golf. Jeff is a custom club designer and designer for the custom heads offered by Swing Science. Jeff and I will talk, and I'll learn from him about some of the basics of custom driver head design. See you in 2 weeks.
Game Improvement Golf, your source of information and inspiration to become an exceptional golfer now. www.gameimprovementgolf.com.